So look, the other way to do it is if you want to start, pardon me, if you want to start a conversation, start a business. Find yourself a nerd friend who knows how to use WordPress. And these days, I mean, there are so many tools at our disposal to get online and to get on the web. Previously, you would have to have someone who could code it in Ruby or something like that. These days, a 10-year-old could probably do it. I can't, but a 10-year-old could probably do it on WordPress. And set up a business. Even if you don't know where it's going to go straight away, set it up, start engaging people, and what it does is it gets a name out there. I will hire someone who's run a small business any day of the week for the simple reason that you have to develop skills from the ground up. And if you can do it with any sort of level of success, and a lot of people after running a small business for a few years want to escape that 20-hour day or the stress of living from sale to sale or engagement to engagement and come back into the fold. But so I, along with a couple of partners, set up this, which is a reviews site for the Adelaide nightlife. We found out that there wasn't really anywhere to go for this. The only way you could get this is in a tourist way, and we didn't want us having to look on tourist sites to find where to go because it'd be full of tourists. So we set this up, and we set this up with a very, very firm plan to turn it into a daily deal site. It was when Groupon, Scoopon were absolutely charging away. And very much to counter what I just said, we took a view that, look, if we build it, they will come. And of course, what Quaff had done, or what the Quaff boys had done, was that they had engaged people by that point for almost 3 years before they tried to commercialise and monetise. In the social media sphere, if you jump straight to the retail commodity, you are likely to offside people who see through you for what you're actually trying to do. If you spend the time to engage them, then you can go from there. And I'll draw that analogy back to you guys and working in jobs, is that if you walk into a job cold and sprout out all of these things that you can do with that brand and engage with that brand, it may work sometimes, but if you're able to walk in and say, hey, look, this is my real life experience in these sorts of things. I found a friend who had a little business and I offered to help them with their social media footprint and profile. And this is how we built them from 100 friends to 600 friends. No one's going to say, no, please don't do that for my business, ever. But if you want to be able to use that in the future, in the not too distant future, as an example of how you would do or have done something, it's going to be quite a powerful example there. And I think it's a really good place to start. Come in. Go back. Now, I don't know whether any of you recognise that handsome short man, but he is the digital manager here at Adelaide University. He works on the commercial side of it and plays a fairly large role in structuring this university's digital footprint, both locally, nationally and internationally. So Mal is a prolific tweeter. He has 2 children under 2, so I think that he just hides in his phone most of the time. But we're talking about around 8,000 tweets here, 1,500 followers, and 1,000 people that he's actively followed. So he was obviously able to come into the role that he holds, which is one that's got quite a lot of respect around the people within my industry. He managed to come into this on the back of, yes, he had a master's in business of some description, commerce, I think, commerce marketing, which is what we're here about at the moment. So he had a master's there. He'd worked for a few agencies around the place, but it was really on the strength of being at the forefront of this digital social media revolution that Mal was able to fall into this role and hold this role here at the uni. It's interesting. Typically, as social media evolves, people like me who work in advertising like to put measures on all of it, because once we can measure it, we can start charging for it. And Clout here, this website, basically says to people in the social media sphere what areas they're influencing strongly on, where their personal brand's going. And it's starting to be used as a bit of a touch point to understand that if people are doing all this tweeting, are they just tweeting nothing?
I'm just panicking. I'm not capturing you, but I am capturing you, so
good.
I can stop panicking. There we go.
So basically, it gives a little bit of an idea about whether you're talking about relevant stuff. If your clout comes up, obviously, as drunk at 6 a.m, things like that, it's going to have done you no help whatsoever that you've got 7,900 tweets. But if it starts to come up that you've been talking about brand engagement, awareness, things that you're learning, sharing with the general population what the latest thinking that Helen's telling you, which is probably going to be good for people like me that are in the industry and sometimes separated from that, that's going to be a good thing. The strangest one, though, was we had a look at, when I was pulling this together, we had a look at my fiance's clout, and her number one was for pro-gay marriage, which she is, but we're not entirely sure how that necessarily got onto clout. Obviously, she talked about it in some conversations. Not many other people were talking about it, and through it came. But if you want a bit of fun and you're on Twitter, etc., check Clout out if you haven't. And it's become the media standard there now. Okay, biggest one, know what's going on. You would not believe how many people I deal with that don't know what's going on in their industry, in the industries around them, etc. We have so many tools at our disposal. From a digital standpoint, it's Mumbrella, it's Australian, it talks about everything there is to know about media, advertising, digital, newspapers, agencies, the whole lot there. That lets you know what's going on. From a personal brand perspective, what that's helpful for is when you're talking to the right people. If you're talking to them, if you're networking with them, even if you're tweeting them, you'll know what's going on. And if they're the right people, they already know what's going on. It means you've got something to talk about, to share. It's got some way for you to remain memorable when you meet them in a networking sense. And that's how you build that remembrance, that brand, and with a bit of follow-up, obviously. Take the card, go the next day, hey, it was great talking about such and such, such and such. How can this fit together? I mean, we're a real-life example of that from a networking thing. We're together. So check it out, know what's going on. As I said, this is an industry of passion. You have to be a passionate marketer. 95% of what we do, we copy. So if you're not looking at anything, you're not going to have very much to work with. They're the building blocks of how you market and how you brand. You're not going to reinvent it every time. God, I wish I could sometimes, but it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I'm sure nobody believes I make everything up as well. It's recooking is important stuff.
Every person that's built a car since Henry Ford just copied it.
Yeah.
So you just make a few additions, you make a few tweaks, you personalise it from there. Getting something truly unique is probably one of the biggest problems you might ever encounter, because if you know it's truly unique and you can't sell it, you can't fund it, etc., it's going to be incredibly frustrating. Blogging, not just yesterday's talk, is still today's talk. The person there is Michelle Prack. She works for Hughes PR, and in my opinion, probably the opinion of most people in South Australia, represents the pinnacle of social media engagement. She does most things right and authentically. Now, I don't always mean create a blog yourself by any stretch of the imagination. Half of what I've got to talk about of interest isn't going to interest very many, and you have to be very dedicated to these things, to your followers, to keep giving them stuff. By blogging, I probably more mean, in your position, interacting with blogs and interacting with the right people. A blog is an opportunity for a two-way conversation, and poor old Praki, she might have a number of people now jumping on and hitting her. She is one of a number of people around SA that you can find out by going onto Twitter and saying, hey look, I'm studying marketing, I want to know who I should be following, what blogs I should be looking at, etc. People will tell you straight away. But check that out, and what that's giving people is a really SA-centric view of what's going on in the digital media world. Just about done.